Hey, Dwayne Liptak here at Magpul, and we're here to talk about exactly what we've got going on at SHOT Show 2018. First thing I'd like to talk about is the Pro 700. So a lot of reactions and interest to this thing on social media, but this is what we have. Right now this is the fixed stock adapter, so we do a fixed and we do a folder. As you've probably seen from the website, the folder is $999.95, the fixed version is $899.95. A lot of adjustability and crazy stuff here. The biggest thing to understand about this is it is an aluminum chassis. The entire thing is really an aluminum chassis. It's just sandwiched with skins basically for ergonomic comfort, less noise, as well as temperature control, kind of not hot, not cold, so you grab aluminum and it's kind of like a heat sink. Adjustability all over the place, so the butt pad translates up and down as well as 5 degrees in either direction for cant. Of course, we have the adjustable length of pull, very similar to PRS knobs. On the cheek riser, for that the greater expectations of stability, we have a secondary lock. So this thumb screw right here, once you adjust your cheek riser height to exactly where you want it, that secondary lock, that thumb screw right there, screws down, so that's absolutely rock solid. We'll show the folding hinge on the other side of it, but really this is kind of like a bank vault. The interesting thing on the folding one is that that thing translates right or left. So you can switch that. If you're right-handed and you'd like to go and deconflict, it avoids the bolt handle, this cutout right here. It doesn't necessarily capture the bolt handle, but it deconflicts from it. So that thing will fold to the right or the left. So you can say, okay, I don't want to fold towards my bolt handle. You flip the hinge in a couple of minutes and now it folds to the left. The other side of it, as we move ourselves forward, we have a grip that, there's two of them that come in the box. This one is a slightly more forward swept grip. There's one that's slightly more vertical. Both of those come in the package, so they're ready to go with those. Those swap out, so AB clamshell swaps together in just a couple of seconds. It also translates forward and aft, so you can adjust your trigger reach based on how big those digits are, or how long those digits are, reach into that trigger, and also that helps with flat triggers or curved triggers, whichever aftermarket you want to do and where that fits within the trigger guard. The trigger guard is big. It's good to go for glove use as well as for, like I said, any of the flat or curved aftermarket triggers. This little plate right here, the bolt cutout plate, swaps with that little plate right there, the sling plate. So there's a QD on that side. This side's the bolt cutout plate. If you want to put a left-handed action in this thing, you just flop those plates around and now you can put a left-handed action in here and everything works absolutely perfectly. Moving ahead forward. Of course, magazine. So the magazine well, we've got a front edge on there so you can push this thing up against a barricade, you can push this thing up against a bag, and you don't have to worry about that putting a bias on the magazine, cause nose down feeding, which happens sometimes when that magazine is completely exposed. So that edge is kind of nice. Works very similar to the Hunter as far as that. It's steel on steel mag catch back here, so you don't have wear issues. Up front, we've got m-lok all over the place. So m-lok across the bottom, right about at the point of balance as well, for tripod use, as well as the fully up the sides. This is actually just integral to the chassis, so this is part of the aluminum skeleton that just shows through the skins. Does have an optional night vision clip-on or thermal clip-on inline mount that you can get. That'll be under 300 bucks, and it'll ship the same time that the chassis does. And it comes on real easy by taking off this nose cone, sliding it on. It's a really secure arrangement. Other stuff, yes, there's a lot of questions about ARCA rails and things like that. By the time this thing ships, you'll see aftermarket m-lok to ARCA rail adapters from us at a very reasonable price point compared to some other options on the market. So if you are an ARCA rail kind of guy, that stuff will be out there as well. Biggest thing, other than that, is the fact that it shoots. It's extremely stable, and of course what you expect out of a completely rigid aluminum skeleton V-block bedding system, it delivers all that. All right, one other look at the Pro 700. So this is actually what the chassis is. It's as you know, there's some questions about, oh, is it a polymer chassis with a bedding block similar to the Hunter? No, the reality is it's an aluminum chassis. It, like we said earlier, it just has skins on it. And here's that actual folding hinge. It's a pretty amazing piece of kit as far as how tight this thing goes together. It's pretty much a bank vault. There's no wiggle whatsoever, and once again, that thing flips. But this is the actual chassis. This is the bones of it. This is the backbone of what makes it what it is, and that's a look inside. Price point $999.95 once again for this folding version, of course with all the polymer on top of it, and then $899.95 for the fixed version. You may see some other versions coming out as well. We expect some other fitments within the line before the end of the year. This is actually much more rapid for us to do some of the changes and hit other fitments than the actual Hunter line, which is much more tooling intensive. So you'll see that before the end of the year. All right, the Magpul suppressor cover, 5.5 inch. What's going on with this guy is we were approached with a problem. Suppressor covers either would catch on fire and or hold in heat. So anything out there, the problem with the suppressor cover is anything you put over the suppressor holds in heat of the suppressor, gets it extremely, extremely hot, and in very short order causes welds, things like that, baffles to fail, and then the can's destroyed. So the problem was needed to be able to cover a can to avoid burns to people and equipment, melty things, burny things that tend to happen when a 1300 degree can touches them, but did not destroy the can. So we spent a lot of time on this. It's been a couple years in the works with a lot of different things that we've tried and prototyped and tested. But this is the final design that comes out, and now we're about 1,000 degrees cooler than whatever the surface temperature of the can is, and it cools off way quicker than any other suppressor cover on the market, and doesn't get your can temperature more than, even in worst case scenarios, about 10% higher than what a bare can does, depending on the environmentals. In some situations, in some environmentals, we've actually seen it cool off quicker than a bare can, just based on wind hitting it just right. We're not saying that it's ever going to do that 100% of the time, but it's possible for it. That's just how good it works and how well the airflow works. A lot of neat stuff going on there. There's a lot of IP around this thing. It looks fairly simple, but what it does and how it does it is pretty slick, and so we're pretty happy with how this thing works. Biggest thing is you can put this thing on there. It's a little heavier than what we had, in a desired end state. Ideal world, we would have made it a little lighter, but it's just what it took to be able to survive that stuff. So this thing will survive the SOCOM suppressor abuse test. So 8 mags at a fairly robust firing schedule. Surface temperature of the can, once again, gets over 1,300 degrees in that situation, and then as soon as it cools down, they do it again and again and again, and this thing is just fine throughout the endurance of that. We don't recommend that you do this at home or shoot it to that levels. SOCOM has a budget to replace those cans, and there are only a few cans in the world that are going to survive that test without a cover on them, let alone with a cover. But 5.5 inches in length, 1.5 inch diameter is what this thing fits. There's going to be some shims for some of the slightly smaller cans out there. We'll have a full fitment chart when this thing ships here later in probably late spring, so you understand what that's going to fit and what not. There's some variability, and it doesn't necessarily have to be exactly a 5.5 inch body. It still works just fine on something that's about a 6 inch body. You can still get to the attachment and release mechanisms, so your QD. The big thing is you don't ever have to worry about, okay, I'm going to transition to this thing, I'm going to let it fall by my side, I'm not going to get a surefire tattoo on my leg, right? That's one of the biggest thing. You're also going to save a lot of money on melted pelican cases, slings, and other accoutrements that otherwise tended to be casualties of hot suppressors. So yeah, this thing once again, shipping late spring. Magpul suppressor cover 5.5 inch, $99.95 is the MSRP on this. You can expect other fitments coming shortly after. All right, one last thing as far as the hard goods side is concerned. Something that's kind of bittersweet for us, a 10-round Glock magazine, so it's our same form factor for a 19-sized frame or a 17-sized frame. We hate the idea of reduced capacity magazines, but the problem is there's a lot of folks that are stuck with 10-round capacity limitations, and the factory options in that case, they use kind of a warped single stack model to try and get 10 in there. Swoosh it all over to one side to accommodate the 10-round limitation, and then you get some feeding issues, and they bias in the magazine differently, and the floor plates don't fit quite the same way. So the 10-round factory solution isn't an ideal one, so it was one of those things where do we let the less than ideal situation exist as far as feeding, or to go with our gut on not doing a 10-round limited capacity magazine. And in the end, a lot of folks out there that are stuck with that, and so we did the 10-round limited capacity Glock magazines. It's kind of interesting. This isn't completely the first time anything similar to this has been done, but it's the same top portion on both these, so it's 10 rounds. It's an ideal stack. It's a perfect stack, just like the rest of our Glock magazines, so it's not all wonky to try and get 10 rounds in there. So top section is the same, holds 10 rounds, feeds perfectly, just exactly like any of the other magazines. Bottom section is different between the magazines, and that's what gets it out to the rest of the length. Pretty impossible to be in any kind of legal trouble for not following the regulations in any of the states that ban capacity on that. And once again, we're going to continue to fight magazine capacity restrictions wherever they exist, but here is an option for you right now if you are, for some reason, limited to that 10-round capacity. All right, also Magpul Apparel, right next to the hard goods booth. Last year we had the 10th anniversary wall. Now we've got our soft goods and apparel side over here. Pretty exciting year for us, revamped a lot of things. What you're going to see from us is kind of a new look, some new construction, and also a lot of new designs with some really interesting features. Take a look at magpul.com. We have basically a lookbook or an experience that takes you through the entire apparel line and kind of what it's optimized for. What you're going to find here is it fits that outdoor lifestyle with some accommodations for the concealed carry and firearms lifestyle meshing together. So you don't have necessarily like the outdoor we also hate you because you use guns kind of thing going on, but it's not complete, you know, we've got pockets everywhere and a lot of Velcro for patches. So if you want to kind of bring those two things together, outdoor apparel with some accommodations. So one of the neat things, like the stateside shirt's one of my favorite shirts. It's a new shirt for us. It allows me to carry a handgun as well as extra magazines to press out without binding or stretching that thing or feeling some sort of limitation, but I also don't look like I'm wearing a muumuu. So you can do that. It's slim, it's cut right to your body to accommodate all that and not bind on you. But that's just one example. The new apparel line is awesome. Take a look at it at magpul.com under the apparel section. One more thing I'd like to throw out there, I am running for the NRA Board of Directors this year, so my name is on the ballot. If you are an NRA Life member or a voting member, an annual member with enough consecutive years, my name's going to be on the ballot. I've got my 150-word bios there, but if you go to DwayneLiptak.jr.NRA.com, you can see my whole position statement and everything that I'm all about. So please, if you are a voting member, take a look at that. What we need is involved membership that holds the board and the organization accountable, and the way we do that is we get the right folks on the board, and I hope to represent your interests on that board.